everybody heard 1.5 trillion, right? I mean, that's paltry.
If the House version came up for a vote in the Senate in current form, would it fail?
Well, I would vote no. I think I have 3 other colleagues that absolutely would vote no as well. But you have to talk to those folks. He's going to have to embrace, I think, a smaller, beautiful bill, and then another beautiful bill once we get serious and do the work to return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending. So, again, I think this has to be at least a 2-step process at this point. I would have preferred a 3-step process. That's probably too late for that.
That was Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. He was criticizing the House GOP's big, beautiful bill after it passed yesterday, teasing the idea of a 2-bill process instead. But he isn't the only one finding issues with the bill. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, President Maya McGuinness, says, quote, this plan is nothing short of a fiscal failure. It adds massively to the national debt, relies on timing gimmicks and false claims about growth. It fails to make the structural spending reforms that we desperately need. The fact that lawmakers passed this bill less than a week after America's latest credit downgrade and yet another worrying Treasury auction is especially maddening. I want to bring in Georgia Congressman Austin Scott. He's a member of the House Agriculture Committee. Congressman, so let's talk about the agricultural portions of this in just a moment, because they're very important, I know, to your district. But at the same time, what do you make of those like Senator Ron Johnson, Maya McGuinness, who say that this bill did not do enough for fiscal responsibility when it came to managing and at some point reducing the nearly $37 trillion in debt that we're sitting on right now?
Sure. So we've got the White House for another 3.5 years, which means we control the agencies and we can do a lot of things through the agencies. What we don't have is time to, get the tax cuts extended for the next 10 years if we don't push ahead with this piece of legislation. So I would have cut spending more than we cut it. I think a lot of Republicans would have cut spending more than we cut it. But the key to it, and you heard this in your last segments, is economic growth. And so the most important thing right now, is that we get this tax code set for at least the next 10 years and hopefully permanently, and we don't see these massive tax increases on the American citizens and especially the American small business owner. The growth rate is key in this, and the tax code is what's going to allow that. And that's more important than a short-term spending cut. We can get some of the cuts through the agencies. I wish it cut more as well, but this is not a situation where, in our democracy, 535 people in the House and the Senate get everything they want.
Well, I mean, we're looking at some of the things that were a part of this. No tax on tips and overtime. That was very important to the president. The extension of 2017 tax cuts, absolutely. What do you make of Senator Johnson's, though, talking about making this 2 different bills? And we also had Senator Langford on the show last week. He said this is going to be the end of July for the Senate. I mean, this is out of your hands now. But what do you make of the discussions now that the Senate's having about maybe doing this a little bit differently and that this bill is going to be different?
Yeah, respectfully, I know the bill is going to be different, but I think 2 bills is a mistake. I would remind you, it passed in the House by 1 vote. Jerry Connolly, who was a personal friend of mine, who's a Democrat, passed away. Had he been there to vote, then then all of a sudden we don't have the votes to pass the bill. So again, I wish it cut spending more. We can do a lot of spending reductions through the agencies. You look at what the Democrats did, where they gave the whole state of California a waiver from work requirements for SNAP benefits. That's totally unreasonable. We take that away in the House of Representatives bill. Do I wish we cut spending more? Absolutely. But am I willing to risk the tax code and therefore the economic growth of the United States of America over that? I would say no, because the deficit will actually be larger if the tax code is allowed to expire at the end of this year.
Well, this bill is
significantly better than doing nothing.
Absolutely. And again, and the other pushback that you hear was about the reelection, making sure that not only do we have the 2017 tax cuts continue, which have been very successful in the economy from President Trump's first term, but also the fact you had many members that were very concerned about the midterms. And you already have, like Rahm Emanuel has an op-ed this morning out talking about how they're going to use this bill against you, in the midterms. They're going to use this bill as their rallying cry that, that's why they want to obviously take the House back. But let's move on.
The American citizens spoke in November, and Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House. And Rahm Emanuel would do well to look at why his party lost, and that this country does not believe in biological men being allowed to play girl sports.
Yeah, the issues of immigration and all the reasons that we
100%.
have the complete
100%.
GOP control. I agree with you.
I just got back. They were paroling people that literally had gang tattoos into the United States of America. Rahm Emanuel and that organization that's running the Democratic Party right now is about as anti-American as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about this. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. released this very anticipated report. So it assesses chronic diseases that's gripped, American kids over the last few years. Listen to what he said.
Unlike other administrations, we will not be silenced or intimidated by the corporate lobbyists or special interests, and I want this group to do what they have to do.
My uncle tried to do this, but he was killed and it never got done. And ever since then, we've been waiting for a president who would stand up and speak on behalf of the health of the American people and say, there is no difference between good economic policy, good environmental policy, and good public health policy, and good industrial policy. We can have all of them.
We are on track to sign multiples of SNAP waivers to get junk food and sugary drinks out of our food stamp system. I was in Nebraska with Governor Pillen, where we signed the first one an hour ago, with a half a dozen more coming down the line.
Congressman, your reaction to that?
Sure. So in the current SNAP system, you can buy candy bars, but you can't buy rotisserie chicken. So I think these are the types of changes that probably need to be made, where Americans, are able to buy healthier food, the same types of food that I buy at the grocery store when I go into it for my family. You go in Publix or you go in Walmart, and literally you can't buy rotisserie chicken. You can't buy soup from the hot bar. You can't buy the stuff that's actually healthy in the grocery store in a lot of cases, and you can buy the stuff that's not. So I think a lot of these changes are good to add healthy cooked foods to diets that people on SNAP can use those SNAP benefits to purchase. And I would suggest to you that, kind of our concerns from farm country, I would just tell you, production agriculture is extremely important to the health of the American citizens. And so some of the things that we're talking about, we need to make sure we're talking about what happens to the food, after it actually, leaves the farm. And I think it's got more to do with the fact our obesity and other things. Americans are eating out of the drive-through instead of at the dinner table with their family right now. And it's probably got more to do with the way we're choosing to eat at the drive-through.
And that goes back to the importance of our nation's farmers, family farms, and that goes back to your committee, the Agricultural Committee. Congressman Austin Scott, thank you so much for being with us. We hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend.
You too.